He said, I baptize you with water, but there's one coming after me that will baptize you with fire. Why fire? Because nothing remains in its present form when fire touches it. If you have made a promise that you don't keep, what are you? You are a liar.
Father, forgive them when they start exploiting their friends. Father, forgive them for backdoing their mans. Father, forgive them, I'ma just pray they repent. Hope they know favor ain't fair. And the reason they stop it.
God said, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, forgive your sins and heal your land. So don't look to them, look to God, look to yourself, break your covenant with hell and death, then make a covenant with Black America and let's help it.
Welcome to my another episode of Passing the Torch, my Manhood series. Today, very excited. Who's co-hosting with me today? A beloved friend of 26 years. I've known this brother since 1998 by way of a program that I was running, or a part of. And he was a foster parent, but little credentials about this brother. They say iron sharpens iron, and you'll be lucky and blessed if you find one person that you can sharpen iron with. And I actually have two, that I really break bread with, and iron sharpen iron. One being Kevin Colburn, he resides in Arizona, and the other one, Albert Earl. And I call him Uncle Mick. And even though we're around the same age, but it's just, it's just respect, the wisdom there that this brother possessed. I mean, he's the numbers man, statistical guy, memorizes all kind of numbers. It's something that I fall short of. But he's been a foster parent. One of the things that I connected with Mick years ago, was the way he moved with the young men that he serviced. Was a foster parent for several years, but he had a big heart, and I know he cared about the kids, the Black boys in particular. His mentorship goes from fostering to to film and production, to coaching, to fathering 4 kids of his own. The list goes on and on. Me and him and another gentleman, Matthew Coleman, we founded an organization about 13 years ago. I want to say at this point, 13, 14 years ago, called the Village 50. And our whole premise was to change our social fabric here in Toledo, Ohio. Very, very, very successful. We adopted a few schools and that were an academic emergency, and we helped turn those things around in a 2-year span. Like I said, Mick is somebody that I go to when I'm knocking my head on the wall, like what's next? What's next for us as far as Black men in America, as a Black race? Very insightful. Like I said, Mick has had his hand on a lot of stuff, community development. I think now he's like executive director here of one of the historic buildings here in Toledo, the Frederick Douglass Center, Recreation Center. He's been, displayed in The Truth, one of the magazines here in Atlanta. Toledo, I keep saying Atlanta, that's where I live, but Toledo Journal. His exploits go on and on. Like I said, that this is a guy that's way, way, way beyond his years and what he does and how he's taken it our neighborhood, this Toledo neighborhood, on his back, on his shoulders, and really, you know, is passing the torch, which is the name of the show. So without further ado, I want to introduce to some and to many, Brother Albert Earl.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man, having me on your show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I do want to give a correction. I was the board president at the Frederick Douglass Community Center. I'm now just regular board member, not executive director, but was the board a board president for. Actually, I ended up being a board president for 4 years because we was going through some serious transition, and the board decided to ask me to stay on so that we could get some other things accomplished, and that's what led to us being able to get the $2.5 million grant from the city of Toledo to do the renovations here. And this building hadn't been touched since the 70s, and it's totally renovated now. Yeah. So I'm real happy about that. But thanks again for having me on your show, brother.
Yes, sir. So Mick, man, you know the name of my show is Pass the Torch. This is a manhood series. I mean, been stuck on that right now for several weeks. And you know, I asked you to come on the show because I mean, I definitely would love to hear your perspective on manhood and how, you know, how you were shaped, you know, how you came up. Where do you see today's young Black men opposed to where we need to be and where we need to go? And what were some of the things that helped shape you growing up that you can kind of give some game to some of the young men here listening, and even some of the old men and then get it?
So, wow, that's a good question. Those are some good questions. So, in terms of just what I think about manhood, I think when you just really kind of look at the word manhood itself, you understanding how culture is today, you can define manhood in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. But what we do know is that you can either demonstrate positive manhood, mm-hmm, or you can demonstrate negative manhood. Yeah. Because, you know, unfortunately, you know, in this country, or probably pretty much around the world, people are identified as being adult based on age, not necessarily maturity.
Correct.
And so you could be a grown man by age, but yet still behave as a child, even though I think the scriptures tell us that we should be behaving as a child when we are a child, but when we become grown, when we become a man, we're supposed to put away those things. That's right. But we seeing it in total reverse today. Total reverse. So, but I think I'll get back to that later. But in terms of how I was shaped, man, I think we was having this conversation not too long ago, mm-hmm, during breakfast. You know, we was kind of analyzing, you know, or comparing what it was like to be raised by our fathers. Correct. And I shared with you that I discovered recently, like really gave deep thought to the fact that my father was never fathered. Mm-hmm. He was, now watch this, he was grandfathered, mm-hmm, but he wasn't fathered. I got you. Meaning this, my father's father passed away when my father was 3 months old. My dad was actually in his dad's arms when he passed away in his sleep. He never knew his father. My grandmother was a party lady. She followed the blues bands around the country. She ended up marrying another gentleman after my biological grandfather passed. That was a part of that blues circuit with that you see on Cadillac Records as a stand-in musician or whatever. And so my grandfather, my great grandfather was like, well, I don't think that your lifestyle would help this young man grow to be the man that he need to be. So I'm going to keep him and raise him.
Okay.
That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the unfortunate thing about that was my grandfather lived on a plantation. And so because of that, and the guy that owned the plantation discouraged the people who lived on the plantation to not discourage them in letting the boys go to school. So based on oral history, I still have an uncle that's in his 90s that's alive, that his memory is so sharp he can remember. I think he can remember the moment he was born. But he shared with me, because him and my father was raised like brothers for most of their childhood, that they probably went to school 2 months out of the year, if that, because they was child sharecroppers, pretty much. Right. And so, and not only being a child sharecropper, my dad also didn't have let's say a great relationship with my grandfather. Mm-hmm. My great grandfather, because he wanted to be with his mother. Right. And my great grandfather had children and had a couple of children close to my dad's age. So when I say grandfather, he was raised by a man, right, but it wasn't his father.
Gotcha.
So there's much more to the story, but by the time my father became a father, he had no real personal example to show him what it meant to be a father, husband, and raising a family in. Now you gotta remember, now my grandfather died in 1950, which my father was 15 years old, and then he finally went to Chicago with his mother then, and some other stuff happened that I won't mention at this moment, even while he was there, which rang true to why my grandfather held him back with him.
Exactly.
But by 1955, 56, 57, he was having his first child, mm-hmm, in his first marriage before he met my mother. Mm-hmm. And a lot of stuff was going on with him on a personal level that he did not have to deal with when he was in Mississippi coming up to the north. So I shared all that, what we talked about, to say my father couldn't give me what he didn't have. Right. He couldn't give me the things that he didn't have. He could only give me what he had in him. And one of the things that he couldn't give us was, me and my father never sat down and did homework together. Mm-hmm. Now, amazingly, my father could read, mm-hmm, well, because he was taught along the way how to read, right, somehow. But any other subjects in school, math, and my father never did no homework with us. Mm-hmm. My father taught us, about work ethic. Mm-hmm. He showed us work ethic because he went to work.
Absolutely.
Worked much overtime, but in terms of having a true personal relationship with my father, I didn't have that until I became an adult.
So do you think that was because of gender roles back then? That was the mom's job to do the homework and sit down and do other things, and it was the man's job to work and show you work ethic. And
I think I think that was kind of like some gender roles for some, but see, to be honest with you, my mother didn't do a lot of work with us with homework either. But my mother did play what we know as that traditional role, and being at home, the homemaker, cooking, and making sure the house was taken care of. And my dad took care of business in terms of being the breadwinner and making sure that the family was fed and protecting the family and things of that nature.
Okay, so how much time did that leave? Because I know you was an athlete. I see, some of your jerseys and stuff in here now. How did that play out with you being, who you were in basketball, football, whatever, as an athlete?
So that's a good question. So learning how to play and getting involved in athletics, it actually came natural to me and my brothers. Okay. I was blessed to have older brothers. Mm-hmm. and older brothers that was actually good
Mm-hmm.
at athletics. So I learned through them. And then some of the sports that I played that just came naturally for me that they didn't play, like football and boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Boxing more so in particular. They didn't box, but it just came natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
So learning those things from my brother was cool, but my father never got out and demonstrated to me how to dribble a basketball, how to hold a basketball, how the ball supposed to leave off your fingertips, shooting motion. He never rebounded for me a day in my life. We didn't have that. He never even threw a football with us. So my dad never, but guess what? He never had that.